Okay, and we are rolling. Cody Tucker, how you doing, man?
Man, I am great. How are you doing?
I'm doing very good, and this is a huge opportunity for me because I am a huge fan of yours, brother.
Thanks, man. Thanks. I appreciate it.
And this is like Christmas coming early for me. You coming on, and we get to get it done before we get attacked by these drones.
Jesus. Yeah. Any day now, I think. God.
And there's
Yeah.
some days I think, man, it might be a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, luckily, I'm not on the coasts of any coast, so I think I might be all right for a little while, but yeah, give it a couple weeks. I think I'll be looking for a cellar to live in.
Well, if there's one state you don't want to fly over, Texas.
Amen.
You're getting shot down, brother.
Yeah. I don't think we got really a whole lot to worry about. I mean, we'll take those bastards down real quick, I think.
I'm from Alabama, but I live in Tennessee now, and these are also two states where we got plenty of boys that are ready to go to war if they need to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Everyone I know around here is like, yeah, let them come on.
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I ain't really like a gun person or anything, but I'm glad I'm around people who are.
What do you think it is?
I mean, at first I was just kind of like, okay, this is a thing getting blown out of proportion. Like it's probably just some, like commercial drone thing that people are just, making, oh, it's aliens, it's this, whatever. And now I'm kind of like, oh, this might be, this might be like kind of the real deal. Not aliens. I mean, not that, but like, I could definitely see it being like Iranian / Chinese based. I mean, that's kind of what it is starting to seem that way. I mean, you have like the representatives of New Jersey that are like, hey, we need some help. Like come shoot these things down. And whenever that started, I was like, oh, this might be real. Uh-oh.
Yeah, and the government's not really responding to those requests.
Which is interesting. Not a surprise, but interesting.
To say the least.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, listen, I want to steal something from you that you do on your show kind of up top.
Okay.
If you real quick, please plug.
For sure. Yeah. So you can find me at social media. It's the Cody Tucker. That's the Instagram. YouTube, it's the Cody Tucker Show. So like every day, Monday through Friday, post a little short history / pop culture, word origin, whatever story, just something random, Monday through Friday. And then the podcast is completely different from that, just so everyone is well aware of that. It is not a history podcast. It is not a educational podcast. It is me rambling or talking about just random stuff, or interviewing guests that are interesting to me. But yeah, and then those come out every Tuesday. So,
well, if I can say to continue on with what you were just saying, everyone go follow on Instagram. You're going to be enlightened. I've heard the phrase, people don't want to be informed, they just want to feel informed.
Yeah.
You will be informed with Cody Tucker.
Thank you.
And the podcast is phenomenal.
Thanks, man.
Such a wide range of guests, I will say.
Yeah, it's I'm definitely running the gamut on guests, which people seem to not really understand that the two things are separate, which is hilarious to me. But I enjoy doing both. I mean, it's basically just trying to make it like my brain put on the internet. And this is all the kind of things that I am fascinated by.
Can I give you my best example of what you just said, where some people get a little confused? You did something with Sam Tripoli.
Yeah.
And someone said in the comments, I'm here for the fun facts, not this. Good night and good luck. And you said, go get you some.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is like, I try not to read comments too much, but whenever I do have guests, like I don't want them to read comments that are like, super, crappy to them. Like, so I will go through to like delete comments that are about them. But if they're about me, I'll leave them. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care. I think it's hilarious. So every once in a while, I do catch some comments, and they're just hilarious. It's like, I thought this was a history channel. It's like, well, you thought wrong. It isn't. It nowhere in it does it say that this is like a history page or an informative educational page. It has my name on it. So that's kind of what it is. It's just, this is my little world, and you know, if you enjoy it, that's awesome. If you don't, that's cool too.
Right.
You know, there are hundreds of millions of Instagram accounts.
Right.
Go follow those.
Well,
Like,
you have this, you have this gift with, on top of being a great historian, making really compelling content. Unwoken, is that the name of the podcast?
yeah. Oh, I was on that one like a couple weeks ago, I think. I think
Well,
it just got
they
released,
released a reel that of a speech you gave, and it's really a phenomenal synopsis of the current state of society, where everyone is in tribes, and we turn into like Jello if anyone tells us something we don't agree with. And it's the most disappointing thing I can see, where people, I mean, again, it's in our DNA to be tribal, but the idea that you can't hear an alternative opinion and just at least consider it for a second and then move on.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I find that to be so frustrating. Like, and I think I said it maybe in that video, like, that I consider myself to be pretty much middle of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably lean to the left on some things, to the right on some things, but in general, pretty middle of the road. And I think that's where I think that's most people. Like, I think you're kind of led to believe that that's not the case, that everybody's on this side or everybody's on this side. But I feel like if you broke it down, or better yet, most people will say, oh, I am full on right wing, I am full on left wing. But if you actually broke down every single issue and like really broke into like what they think, they are very much like, right wing people have more left wing tendencies than they think, and left wing people vice versa. Like, you start to get closer to the middle the more you like break it down. People hate that idea. They think it's like a cop out. Like, if you say you're in the middle, oh, well, you're really just like a right wing guy, but you don't want to admit it. Well, no, I'm not a right wing person by any means. I like some people who are Republican, and I like some people who are Democrat. I hate most of them, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of them are just horrible people. But, it's just how it is. Like, yeah, it's frustrating. But yeah, like you said, it's part of our DNA to be tribal, to find your group. They'll take care of you. They'll keep you safe from everybody else.
And there's a lot of profit and division.
Oh, yeah. Fear and division makes a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The amount of things that people will buy strictly based out of the fear of not having it is like, that's the way to do it. Is you just make someone afraid of not having a certain thing, and they will go out and buy it. And that's kind of how like the media run, like everything works, is everybody's just kind of afraid of not having something, as opposed to actually wanting the thing. Nobody really wants half the stuff they see in like a commercial, but they're afraid of not having.
Do you notice on the news nowadays that it's all prediction mostly? Now they're not really just telling you what happened today. Like today we had a school shooting in Wisconsin, so that's going to be the top of the news. But mostly at night it's, well, this might happen when Trump takes office, and then everyone is panicked. And it's like, tell me what happens.
Well, they do that. It's just, how long can you recap what happened that day? So like, if you have a 24-hour news channel, if you're recapping what happened in the last 24 hours, that takes about an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do for the other 23 hours? Like, 24-hour news has ruined so many things. There's no reason for it at all. There's no reason. All it does is just make, middle-aged and older people, terrified of everything.
Right.
And angry. Like I got grandparents are still alive. And I mean, they get so angry watching the news. I'm like, why are you watching? Like, and and it's basically, they want to think that like it's not changing their belief or opinion, but it does instantly.
Well, that goes back to the Howard Stern poll that they did when he was at the height of his career, when they had people and they said the people that hated him watched him longer because they just wanted to see what he was going to say next that was going to make them angry.
Exactly. It was like 3 times the length of the people who said that they enjoyed his show.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, because people enjoy being angry in general. Not everybody, I mean, but most people, they feel more out of anger than they do out of joy, which is, it's like how fear is a stronger emotion than laughter or like, comedy. It's why more people will go see a horror movie than the average comedy. But, it's just part of how it is. People like those emotions more than they like a good emotion.
Wait, horror does better than comedy?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, think about how many comedies even come out anymore. There's like no comedy movies. Like just straight, just this movie is a comedy, not like a movie that happens to have some comedic elements. You think about that compared to horror movies, and there's way more horror movies now. It didn't used to be that way. I mean, there definitely used to be a lot more comedies, but I mean,
I didn't know that. The stuff that you do on movies is almost the most fascinating stuff to me that I don't know. What are your top 5 movies of all time?
Oh, favorite or what I think are the top 5 greatest? Because it's a different list.
Give me both lists.
Okay, so 5 favorite. These are just like the ones I enjoy watching the most. Jurassic Park number 1 for sure. Then probably Point Break, the original. Lost Boys, Young Guns, and Dazed and Confused.
Bro, Young Guns, Dazed and Confused. Oh my God, you have a great list.
Thanks. Yeah, that's definitely 5 favorite that I will watch on repeat.
Okay, my buddy texted me the other day and asked me to ask you this: if you know something about Young Guns, do you by any chance know anyone that was supposed to be cast in Young Guns but didn't?
Oh, I don't think so, because I think it was pretty much the people who they wanted for that movie ended up in that movie. I mean, I know Tom Cruise is in it for a second, and I think there was like a thing of like where he was supposed to have like a way bigger part, like he was going to play like a more, I mean, he's not like one of the regulators, but he was going to play like a bigger part in the movie. But no, I don't know of anyone who was supposed to be in it.
That's crazy you say that, because he texted me after and he said, he said, you have to ask him if he knows about Young Guns because he's a big movie buff.
Yeah.
And he sent me a text next and he said, I think Tom is in it, but I don't think he's credited even on IMDb.
No. Well, no, he's not credited on anything for it, but he's in the shootout at the end of the movie. It's like whenever the cavalry, the troops come in and whenever they have them locked in the guy's house, he's one of the guys who gets shot by the regulators, like one of the soldiers.
Oh, so kind of like Jon Bon Jovi in Part 2.
Yes, just like Jon Bon Jovi in Part 2. Yeah, that's a good pull. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, that's a great soundtrack from Young Guns 2, in my opinion.
Man, I love Young Guns 2. that to me is almost just as good as the first one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, add in Christian Slater is awesome, just in general. But Balthazar Getty, like it is, both of them are just so good.
Yeah, the speech on Pals is something me and my buddies to this day still recite.
Man, that's such a good one. God, I love. Yeah, it's just such a good movie. I love movies like that. Like Point Break obviously is another one where it's just like Patrick Swayze to me is probably the coolest human being to ever live.
100%.
Like, yeah, it's just, especially in that movie, is Bodie. Like that's like the coolest person ever. I mean, granted, he's a bank robber, so it's not really like a great guy, but he's like, just how he is in that movie is so cool. Like, yeah, and then Roadhouse, of course.
And that has one of the most underrated songs that people don't still talk about today. But Jimi Hendrix, "If 6 Was a 9" is in that movie.
In the party, yeah. Whenever they show up to the house on the beach, Swayze's house, Oh, I forget. Yeah, that's a great song.
Great song.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I look at Point Break, and I can tell you this: that was the moment where I got my one crime I would want to commit in my life if I ever could do it and get away with it, and that's
Yeah.
bank robbery.
Oh, I think that's how you know a person is a good person. Because if you ask them that question, they say murder. It's like, oh, you really are a bad person. Like in my mind, like if I could get away with a crime, it's bank robbery for
Me
sure.
too.
That's a victimless crime. I
Yeah.
mean, in most ways. Yeah, I 100%. Actually, I mean, trains are a thing, but not the way they used to be. But robbing a train would be a great one. That's one that I would, like full Jesse James style. Like I think I'd almost rather rob a train than a bank.
Really?
Yeah, I think it'd be cool. There's something about like catching up to the train on a horse, like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, kind of like in that movie. They keep running into the same guy who's trying to protect the train,
It
and
just
keep
feels
like
like the
blowing them.
dismount would be difficult.
Yeah, well, I mean, chances are my big ass ain't fitting on any horse, anyways. I mean, it's gonna be Swaid backing on that thing. Yeah. I don't think I'd have much of a chance, anyways. I don't think I could rob a bank very well either. But if I could, that would definitely be one that I would love to do.
So we did the favorite five, and then you
Yeah.
said you have another five.
So 5 greatest movies of all time that I just think are perfect movies. But it's not necessarily like I'm going to sit around and watch them every day. Apocalypse Now, number 1, I think is the greatest movie ever made. Apocalypse Now, Goodfellas, The Exorcist, The Big Lebowski, and probably Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Again, movies you're not going to watch every day. I mean, some people maybe, but yeah, I like those movies are perfect movies. Like there's not a single thing you could make that you could do to those movies to make them better. Like they are perfect in every single way.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to mention to people the reason I brought up movies is when you watch Cody's stuff, he does this most compelling stuff on movies. So I had to ask you about that.
Yeah.
I want to ask you something about your reels. So there's a Hall of Fame songwriter here in Nashville who also follows you, and he's a friend of mine named Rafe Van Hoy. He wanted me to ask you, how you put together these reels and how you got interested in the history of connecting dots. And he referenced a show by a guy, I think the name was James Burke, who did a show called Connections.
Oh, I don't like a TV show.
Yeah. And he said that's what kind of reminds me of. So I wanted to ask, how you got into it and how you started to figure out how to connect all these dots. Cause I can like let me just reference something for somebody to watch back. The Hoover Dam.
Oh, okay.
The first person to die constructing the Hoover Dam and the last person to die were father and son.
Yeah. The dad was one of the people who went out to basically check out the land where they were gonna be building the dam, and they were doing some test explosions, to check the soil or something, and it ended up killing him. So he became the first person to die building the dam. And then as it was getting completed, 14 years later, I might have that date wrong, but I think it was about 14 years later, a guy was working on one of the towers and fell off and died. And that guy was that person, Junior, the son of the guy who
insane.
died. Yeah, father and son.
So how do you find that information?
I mean, kind of a lot of different ways. So I read nonstop pretty much. Have a pretty extensive library of books, and then I go to libraries or read books, just randomly. Anything that I think might have something interesting in it. And usually I'm reading the book and 99% of the stuff is just boring. Stuff that is not going to make anything in interesting content. But then every once in a while I'll find something where I'm where they might mention names. So let's say I read a book about Thomas Jefferson, and then they start mentioning other people that you sometimes aren't even you don't even necessarily think of as being connected to Thomas Jefferson, like Edgar Allan Poe. When Thomas Jefferson was when he created the University of Virginia, I mean, he was the president of the university for like the first couple of years. One of the students in the first class of the University of Virginia was Edgar Allan Poe, like a young Edgar Allan Poe, which
Wow.
in your head you think like, well, those dates don't make sense. Like that can't be true because those dates don't seem like they would add up, but it is true. So like you kind of like find those little things. You're like, oh, that's kind of interesting. Like I've always been interested in like connecting dots like that. Where like, oh wow, that's crazy that these people overlapped in some way. Like Gandhi and like Gandhi writing a letter to Hitler is a weird overlap.
Whoa, what happened there?
I mean, he basically tried to tell him like, "Hey, cut it out." Like wrote a letter to Hitler being like, "Hey, you should not be doing this. You need to knock it off." And yeah, but like in my mind, I was thinking, I think of Gandhi as being, I guess, from just a different era, different time, which he's not. I mean, there's videos like he met Winston Churchill, I believe. I mean, he, was
Do,
met Charlie Chaplin and Gandhi met a few times, I think. Like,
wow.
yeah,
Do we
yeah. There's
have
like,
documented? Is it documented if Hitler responded to him?
I don't think he responded. No. But the letter is out there. Like you can read the letter. Because like, I've read it. I mean, it was a long time ago when I read it, but yeah, I read the letter that Gandhi wrote to Hitler, and it's just interesting.
Jesus.
Yeah, there's like a lot of those. Like Pablo Picasso and Alice Cooper were pen pals, which is a weird thing that I just don't picture Pablo Picasso existing at the same time as Alice Cooper.
Yeah, we had a guy on
He
the
did.
podcast that backs up for the Hollywood vampires on keys.
Oh God! Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, there's some crazy Alice Cooper stories.
Oh, I bet they are
Jeez.
phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, Elvis he almost killed Elvis one time. I mean,
Wait, hold on.
yeah.
So Alice Cooper almost killed Elvis.
Yeah, so back in like the early 70s, Alice Cooper got invited to this hotel. Alice Cooper was in Vegas and got invited to a hotel room. Not knowing who was going to be in the hotel room, didn't know what was going on. People were just like, hey, you need to come up here and hang out. Alice Cooper shows up. The person that answers the door is holding a gun pointed right at his face. And it's Elvis. And Elvis then hands Alice Cooper the gun and is like, I can show you how to take a gun away from someone. Because, Elvis took like, little kids karate classes or whatever. And Alice Cooper said that at one point, like, so Elvis gave him the gun and told him to like point it at his head. And he said at one point he thought like, I should pull the trigger. like this, I think this guy's going to kill me. Like I need to kill him before he kills me. And as he was about to pull the trigger, Elvis basically threw him to the ground, put his boot like in Alice Cooper's neck and pulled the gun out from him.
Wow.
Like, see, like I told you I could do it.
Okay, so I know this is probably a true story because my buddy Dylan Weldon just had T.G. Shepherd on his podcast. And
yeah,
he said one of the scariest moments of his life is when Elvis insisted that he put a gun to his belly. And he's like, pull the trigger and I'll have it out before you get the trigger pulled. And he was like, so he just flinched. He's like, I can't do it. He's in Graceland with Elvis.
Yeah.
See, Elvis is one of the most amazing figures to me in the same spirit of like the Beatles, like the longest lasting legacy that still has not died down. Do you have a lot of Elvis history?
Not I mean, a lot of the stuff that I think most people kind of already know. I mean, because especially with the movie that came out, with Austin Butler, so everybody kind of knows like the Tom Parker stuff, which I don't think a lot of people really knew the extent of how much of a scumbag Colonel Tom Parker was until the movie. I know his mom used to Elvis's mom used to basically treat people's sore throats by pissing in a mason jar and having them drink it. Yeah, she said it was like a medicine, like a home remedy. And so, like, you might end up at Elvis's house. I think she did it at Graceland a few times. If somebody complained about having a sore throat, she was like, oh, well, I have a remedy. And then she would come back with a mason jar and not tell you what it was and say, like, drink it. And it was, her urine.
I mean, I was going to say you have to sell it as fresh lemonade, right? Or something.
Yeah, something. I mean, yeah. Robitussin, a new Robitussin, something. You know? Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I know. Yeah, there's that one. I mean, a lot of it's just. I mean, when he died, he had 80 pounds of feces in his colon. That's a pretty wild one.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. Which you eat enough peanut butter, bacon, and jelly sandwiches, you'll block up your colon pretty quick. Um, but yeah, and then you'll take a bunch of opiates as well, which causes constipation.
Causes constipation. I know from
Yeah, so
experience.
yeah, I mean, he was constipated, for years, and then just kept just shoveling in food, and he's got nowhere to go. So yeah, yeah, he had basically like an 8-year-old in his colon.
Well, let me ask you this question that you might know, because I understand that you're a
Okay.
Nicolas Cage fan.
Oh,
Did
man.
he marry Lisa Marie
Yeah.
just to be able to go into the room that's off limits?
I 100% believe that. I don't know if that's true, but I 100% believe it.
I want to believe that.
Actually, you know what? Anyone could tell me any story about Nicolas Cage, and my go-to reaction is to believe it. I'm normally a pretty skeptical person about pretty much anything. Not Nicolas Cage. Tell me any story about Nicolas Cage. I'm like, that checks out.
Yeah. I've always heard that that's why he married to her or dated her?
I think they just dated. I don't think they were married. I think they just dated. I think she was only married to Michael Jackson. I don't think she was ever married to anyone else, was she?
I don't know.
I don't know. I think she was only married to Michael Jackson.
Okay.
Which, if you marry Michael Jackson, probably not going to be interested in marrying anybody else. So, like, I think one and done for me. Yeah.
I don't even want to know the skeletons in that closet.
That's well, they're very small skeletons, if that tells you anything. Right. Child size almost.
Child size.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh boy.
It's horrible.
Sorry, Michael, but not sorry. Yeah.
Because I'm like, again, when we talk about like the biggest artists ever, we're talking Elvis, we're talking Beatles. Michael's supposed to be on that list, but it's just like I don't know how to differentiate or draw a line. I still listen to his music and I like it. But
because of him diddling?
Yeah.
Well, Elvis did too. I mean, it's not, I mean, Elvis, Elvis and Lisa Marie, she wasn't exactly of age.
Yeah, at least he married her. Is that possible to come back with?
Nope. Nope. I mean, no. I mean, you can, no, hell no. I mean, she was still a kid. I mean, a teenager, but still a kid. I mean, if Michael Jackson would have married one of those kids when they turned 18, that would have made it just as bad.
That's a good perspective.
Yeah. I mean, in the Beatles, I mean, John Lennon is arguably one of the biggest scumbags in music history. I mean, so I don't, not that he deserved to get shot, but kind of had it coming to him. I mean, like screaming into your kid's ear until they become deaf in one ear is not a great thing to do.
Whoa.
Beating both of your wives like senselessly, not a great thing to do. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, he's a monster.
Now, is that Julian Lennon?
No, it was Sean Lennon.
Lennon.
It was Yoko's kid that I guess apparently he was having they were having dinner and a very young Sean Lennon's table manners weren't up to par. And I guess John Lennon got fed up and walked over and just screamed in his ear as loud as he could, and he went deaf in that ear.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then, and just beat his first wife, Cynthia, I think, beat her like crazy. And then, beat Yoko Ono like crazy. And completely disowned Julian. I mean, just, but he's the, give peace a chance fella. Yeah.
These are like the prosperity gospel people, and they sell you shit while they're cashing checks.
Yeah, John Lennon's the ultimate example of that, of being like, and actually it's kind of always that way. Like Gandhi was a horrible person in a lot of ways.
I've heard about this recently.
Yeah, he wasn't some saint. And to actually add on to that, Mother Teresa is technically a saint, was not a saint by any stretch of the imagination. Was actually a complete scumbag.
Oh, what's that story?
So Mother Teresa, Mother Teresa obviously very close ties with the Vatican because working with the Catholic Church and everything as a nun. she basically, ran this charity where people would donate, millions of dollars to her helping, you know, helping treat sick people in third world countries, mostly like India and like, that kind of area, like South Asia. Um, she, as it turns out, was not using any of that money to treat those people. She was sending it straight to the Pope and, giving the Vatican millions of dollars. And instead was having these sick and dying people laying in what was basically a giant concrete bunker, laying on the floors and then like just this giant concentration camp looking thing that it was basically just solid concrete floors and not giving them any medicine. And she would just walk up and down the rows of people and like get a joy out of it because she believed that like that was the best way to get to God, closer to God, is to suffer and to witness suffering.
Whoa.
So yeah, not the nicest lady.
Well, you know what L. Ron Hubbard said, the best way to get rich is start a religion.
It worked for him.
Word for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and people look at L. Ron Hubbard like he's some lunatic, which he was. They're all, I mean, so was Mother Teresa, so was Gandhi. I mean, a lot of them are complete lunatics. Like, it's not a, just because you start your religion in the 1950s doesn't make you more of a lunatic.
Well, I don't want to be an apologist for historical figures, but I want to ask you this as someone who has such a deep knowledge of history. Do you think that you have to draw a line in how you judge historical figures based on the context of that time?
I mean, maybe a little bit of leeway, but not really. Because ultimately, there's still a bunch of people at that time who did not believe that way. Like, is there someone you mean like specifically, or or just in general?
I mean, look at Plato and Socrates and.
Well, Plato and Socrates, I mean, I don't think they really did anything.
I think they had little boys.
Oh, did they have little boys? Oh, well. Yeah. I mean, yeah, well, the ancient Greeks definitely, they invented a lot of things. They, gave us democracy, gave us a lot of things, but they also, did
Let's
a
just
lot
say
of,
it.
Yeah, they did a lot of diddling.
They did a lot of diddling. They gave us ass fucking.
Yes, they did. Which, I mean, you can't win them all, but my God. Yeah, no, I mean, fuck both of them if they were banging little kids, then no, fuck them. There's no era in history where that is, well, that's in the past. No way. I know that the Greeks did look at it as the purest form of love, which is hilarious. But I don't care how they looked at it. It's disgusting.
I feel like there could be a purer form of love over pedophilia.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I would consider it the purest form, but yeah. I mean, there was a lot of Greeks and Roman emperors, and a lot of people doing a lot of shady shit like that.
Yeah.
But that's so far back that it's like, well, who the hell knows what was going on back in those days? Like, it's hard to actually believe anything that you hear from those times. Because, like, you take like one of the Roman emperors, Nero. He's considered to be this like monster of a human, and it's like arguable that all the stories about him are just made up.
Mm-hmm.
That all the horrible things he did were just people who were against him, and they wrote the stories after they killed him. And, and who's going to know? Like, it's not like you got a whole lot of sources to cross-check. So it is hard to know, like, what was even going on in those times. But if it's more like modern, like, like a lot of people, like Thomas Jefferson, a lot of people are very anti-Thomas Jefferson, like, strip him off of everything, take down statues, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if I can necessarily go that far, but yeah, he was a horrible person, too, in a lot of ways.
A lot of ways.
Yeah, and should not be like excused as being that was the time. There were plenty of people way before Thomas Jefferson that knew that slavery was a horrible thing. So, and he knew it was a horrible thing. Like he said it was. Said it plenty of times that it should not exist. Yet, he had slaves.
Yet he had them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jefferson, I like him over Adams because, they had that quarrel. where they were
Yeah.
at each other. And Adams, but again, these are character flaws you have. But like on a policy side, Adams was like, we don't need the Constitution. I don't even think he wanted freedom of speech. He wanted to
Well,
lock up the press.
yeah, well, he passed the Alien and Sedition Acts,
Yeah,
which basically was to stop people from criticizing his government while he was in rule. Which, yeah, John Adams was an interesting fellow. But then he also was the lawyer he was the lawyer for the British soldiers following the Boston Massacre. Because he believed that everyone had a right to a to a fair trial, even people that are our enemies. So there's like, well, damn, that's a nice thing to do. I mean, that's a good sentiment. But locking up people because they're criticizing you, not a good thing.
right.
People are not good and bad, good or bad.
I agree.
Like it's just there's everything. Like depending on who you ask, some people have a much different opinion about certain people. I mean, and then whenever you look at it, it's like, yeah, like there are great people who did horrible things, and there are horrible people who did some good. Like it's just how it is.
It's the trade-off of humanity. We are flawed people.
Yes. Yeah. Some are just way more flawed, and some get remembered as being flawed. I mean, it's everybody, Like I'm sure that you can ask. I'm sure there were people who Joseph Stalin was hanging around with who were like, "Yeah, I thought he was a nice guy." like he was nice to me. Like I'm sure there were people who thought that, but millions of people who met a very different Joseph Stalin.
Well, look at modern society. So I'll reference one of my favorite clips of yours where I did not know that Martin Luther King paid for Julia Roberts to be born.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, Martin Luther King is a legend, but we do know that he was a man of great character flaw and running around with women.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, and in some ways it's like, does that thing negate the good thing they did? Like so Martin Luther King, him being an adulterer and having multiple women, like I think a lot more part of his congregation that he was sleeping with, does it reduce his impact? Does it change the positive impact he had on the civil rights movement? Like in my mind it doesn't, because he still did those things, and he still had a massive impact. He was still very influential. He just did things that were not good, they were just bad. Like you shouldn't cheat on your wife.
Right.
It's one of those things. But it'd be different if he was embezzling money or something that was supposed to be going towards civil rights. You know what I mean? Like if it's
that's exactly
a thing
right.
That's going toward like that doesn't diminish it to me for him.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate that analysis because, I look at it like when we're talking about historical figures, just don't hide the flaws.
Yeah.
There are some people that run these, libraries and memorials, and they want to promote how great this historical figure was.
Right.
Just don't let me find out that you're trying to suppress the story in the press.
Right. That's the problem. And there are a lot of people like in Texas, which our education system is just so fucked in a million ways. But there's any time that something gets brought up that they're going to put into, into the lesson plan or whatever, the curriculum. If there's anything negative about a person like Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, or whatever, or any in-depth discussion about slavery or whatever, it immediately gets struck down as we're not doing this. This is horrible, blah, blah. There's no reason to talk about Thomas Jefferson having slaves. It has nothing to do with his presidency, blah, blah, blah. Yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
It has a huge, it has a lot to do with, as a guy who wrote or co-wrote the Declaration of Independence, and in that document said all men are created equal and own slaves as property. It's a kind of a big part of it. Now you shouldn't just say, oh, well, that means he was a horrible president, or that means he was a horrible governor. He could be both. I mean, goddamn, Marion Barry was smoking crack, and
on video,
people loved him.
On video.
I mean, people loved him. Or Rob Ford from Toronto. I don't know if you remember that guy, but so Rob Ford was the mayor of Toronto and he was like on video smoking crack and like
Oh, this
banging
is not too
hookers.
long ago.
Yeah,
The
not that
heavy
long
set
ago.
dude.
Yeah, heavy set dude. Yeah, Farley-esque type
Yes,
guy.
exactly. I do
Yeah,
know him.
but everyone in Toronto loved that dude. They're like, yeah, we don't care. I mean, he's a good mayor, so it doesn't matter that he smokes crack. Like, you know, if I found out Thomas Jefferson smoked crack, I would not think that that was important to teach. You know, like what difference does it make if he got high? But if he owned slaves and he, you know, was the president and wrote a document that is arguably one of our most important documents in U.S. history, and it shows him being a complete hypocrite, I think you should talk about that. Like I don't think it should be like the only thing you talk about, but you got to mention it. Shit, I mean,
Bro, what if we found out that the founding fathers were all cooked up on meth when they were writing that?
I mean, they were high, a lot of them. I mean, a lot of them were, well, I mean, they were also all just hammered drunk 24/7. I mean, it was kind of part of the times, but yeah, I mean, you know, they were, yeah, if meth was available to George Washington at Valley Forge, every one of those motherfuckers would have been on meth, just freezing their tits off, but cranked up to 100.
Well, that was my favorite thing from Dazed and Confused when Slaterson teaches us whether it's true or not that Martha used to have a joint rolled for George.
I mean, they did grow hemp. It's just that hemp, you know, whether or not they were using it for that is kind of, yeah, no, I don't think there's really any like proof or anything to say different. It's just hemp was like a very, which still would be a very like, you know, viable.
You don't think they smoked?
Maybe. I don't know. I've never read like whether they have or haven't. I think they probably did. I bet whenever Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin went to Paris, they were doing all kinds of stuff. I mean, they were definitely banging their way through the entire capital of France, but well, Benjamin Franklin at least. But.
Well, let me ask you another question. So, where do you stand on TV? Are you a big TV fan?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Love it. Obsessed with TV.
What kind of sparked your interest in TV as a kid growing up? What were the shows that you loved?
Let's see. So I was born in 93. So like I missed a lot of what I think would be more of like the peak of television. Like I've gone back and watched, you know, like Miami Vice and the, you know, the things that actually matter to society. But I definitely grew up watching like mostly just reality TV. It's actually kind of still all I watch. But I like kind of grew up in the era of like reality TV becoming a thing, which obviously like Real World started, you know, when the year I was born, so that doesn't really count.
Oh God, I remember that.
Yeah, Real World's amazing. It's a great show. I mean, you know, it was a great expose on what happens when you bring different people into one place and see what happens. Like but yeah, that's mostly why I just MTV nonstop. MTV, you know, any reality shows. Survivor to me is the greatest television show ever made.
Oh my God, you and my mom.
It's the greatest.
My mom watches it. We can't even call her when it's on.
Oh no. Oh yeah, it was, yeah, I mean, it was like a childhood thing that like me and my parents watched Survivor like well, it used to be Thursdays, now it's Wednesdays, but yeah, it was we never missed an episode. I still have never missed a episode since day one. Yeah.
Since you referenced Miami Vice, do you know that the first reality show, Cops, was actually supposed to be called Real Miami Vice?
Really? I didn't know that.
So I heard this on I think it was the History Channel recently when they were talking about the history of reality TV.
Yeah.
But apparently Cops only came to fruition because of a writer's strike. And I think even before that writer's strike, they had been bouncing around the idea and they were going to call it the Real Miami Vice.
That's interesting.
So that might be one to look into.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's a great one. I mean, yeah, it makes perfect sense. I did watch a lot of Cops too. I watched a lot of trash TV. Which I still do. I love trash. Anything trashy, just scumbag kind of TV. That's my thing.
See, so you had
Jerry
fun.
Springer, all that.
Oh, Springer was amazing when I was in high school. Because I'm 44.
Okay.
So I'm a little bit older than you. So I grew up, you know, in the morning, TBS for me was Brady Bunch, I Dream of Jeannie, and Gilligan's Island.
pretty good ones. Yeah.
Now,
That's
Gilligan's Island is the easiest version of fuck, marry, kill you'll ever see.
oh yeah.
You got
Oh
you got Ginger for the fuck,
yeah.
Marianne for the marry,
Mary.
and what's her name?
Uh,
Al.
uh yeah. That is very true. Yeah. Yeah. That's what's crazy is that like they say like TV is sexualized now and like everything's about sex, blah blah blah. You go back and watch like I Dream of Jeannie. Every kid I imagine in the 60s and 70s, I guess that's when it was on, right? 60s, 70s. Like every kid was probably just tugging their little stinger to that show. I mean, Barbara Eden was so fucking hot. Like, yeah, and then Gilligan's Island's like, well, yeah, like that's every guy. I mean, yeah, TV's always been about sex.
Bro, I
Just
think I've heard older people say they used to tug it to Sears catalog lingerie section.
oh well, yeah. That's understandable too. Yeah, yeah. Anything you get, I mean,
I mean, it's
go
all
to the
relative, is what I'm saying. So back in the day,
yeah.
that's what they had.
Well, yeah, I mean, also whenever movies, I mean, the first movie theaters were porn theaters. Like it's, I mean, the first movie, like the first movies ever made were porn.
Or porn.
Like, yeah, like I mean, there was obviously like there was the My Bridge, whatever his name was, that did like the horse running, which I mean, I don't know if I count that, but yeah, like the first Odeons, which is what they called movie theaters back then, were just fucking peep shows.
Porn is notorious for being the first industry always adopting new technology
Yeah,
from theaters to film to credit card processing to internet.
yeah, Blu-ray. That's how Blu-ray like
Yeah,
became a thing instead of HD. Remember, there was like HD
yeah.
movies that were like purple, and then there was Blu-ray. The only reason Blu-ray lasts is because porn released movies on Blu-ray and not HD.
Bro, can you imagine if they would release, so whatever porn website you go to, if they released your
All of
Wrapped at the end of the year?
oh. Oh, I can already tell you what it. I mean, I could just shoot it off the top of my head right now.
It would be,
That would be
it would be your top
yeah.
5 stars and your top 5 genres. And my desire would be to see like politicians have theirs leaked.
Oh man, that is such a great idea. I don't know why they don't. Like, well, they probably. I mean, because people do like even people. Everybody watches porn, but like when people do, they still feel like a weird shame about it, which I think is
Oh,
ridiculous. No, hell no. But yeah, I would love for them to. I mean, I'm in Texas, so I have to kind of do a bunch of workarounds to get to
oh,
most.
that's right. Pornhub just brought the hammer down with you guys, or the government did with you guys, right?
Yeah, for every site basically. But if you look hard enough, you can still find some that life finds a way.
I mean, like imagine if we got a hold of George Santos's. The
Hmm.
congressman who they had him dressing
Yeah.
in drag, who's now gone.
Yeah, I think I could kind of predict what his would be as well. I could probably, you know what? Actually, I think that might be an untapped talent that I might have. Because I could probably predict people's, uh, that like what their Wrapped would be.
Well, that's one of the things that I really it would be hilarious. But that's one of the things I like about your show. Also, is that you talk to
Yeah.
all kinds of people, and to be honest with
Yeah.
you, the people that you have on from the porn industry are extremely compelling.
Yes. Yes. And that's what's crazy is that so many people who do hate it that I do interview people in porn, like they don't watch it. Like they just know that that's what that person is from, and they're the ones who criticize. I get like when you watch it, like those people, yeah, they're just very genuine, nice, intelligent people. Like it's not, yeah. Everybody has that kind of like bimbo idea of like what they are, and it's like this is not the case. It's not the case whatsoever. It's just fascinating. Like it is a fascinating industry
Yeah,
for sure, and the people in it are fascinating.
I just saw where this girl on Twitter made $40 million doing OnlyFans.
Wild. But she's not even like doing porn. She's just doing like that kind of basic OnlyFans where you're not even like doing anything.
Yeah, Twitter is convinced that I want to see her and this girl Mira Nowhere. Like it's my entire feed when I sign on.
Well, It might be your fault. Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what I was thinking, but no, it's actually not, because I actually have a friend who's on Instagram, and he had just gotten on, and I said, go to your search thing. And he
Yeah.
clicked on the search thing, and it was all beautiful models since he's a male on there. Like that before he even started doing anything
That's
on
interesting.
Instagram.
Yeah. Well, that's very true. Yeah. Because mine's the same way for obvious reasons. But yeah. I mean, mine is just be. I mean, I can't even go to my search thing. Like I can't even look at it. So I'm like, oh, here we go. Like it's about to just be cans or pages. Like, yeah.
Like
And
I can't
yeah.
imagine being a kid nowadays, because for us, I'll never forget, we were building a treehouse in the woods and we found a Cherry magazine.
Yeah.
And that was like, it was like glowing when you looked at it.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I can't even imagine the kids with these phones.
No. Like, oh, I know. And I kind of got, like, I guess just from like my age group, like it's sort of the transition period. So like we remember both, like very young, whenever the transition into like having phones, having decent internet, like all that kind of thing. But I still remember like being like really little, like way too young, and like going into like my granddad's like shed, like his like work shed, and he had pictures of like Anna Nicole Smith everywhere. And just like going in there, and I would like sneak in there and just look at those pictures, like, oh my God, like, and that was like my first taste of being like, oh, that's porn. I mean, it's not, but kind of. I mean, to a little kid, like that's what it is. And then I would like look through his drawers and find like like old like, well, I guess they actually weren't that old. I mean, they were like 90s Playboys with like Carmen Electra and
Oh yeah.
Pamela Anderson, and yeah. So it was, what was her name? Victoria Silvstedt. That was one that she was
That's
always
when I was
on.
coming up, man. Jenny McCarthy, Carmen
Yeah,
Electra, Pamela Anderson.
yeah,
I had Baywatch when I was a kid.
yeah, exactly. Like that's, yeah, the weird like Puritan mentality that most people still, or not most people, but a lot of people still have, is just mind-boggling to me.
What do you think of the good TV shows nowadays? Because it's getting fewer and further between for good ones.
I don't really watch any like regular TV shows except for like the same trash reality TV. Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, 90 Day Fiance. Like that's like the only things I really watch, like TV wise. And
You're
Survivor.
hilarious.
Yeah, man, that's all I'm really into. And then like, any true crime stuff, like Cold Case Files,
Did you watch the
First 28.
JonBenet documentary?
Yeah. That guy, like I definitely don't think the parents had anything to do with it. But the dad, you would think he would get sick of talking about it.
Mhm.
Like if I was the father of what was she, 8 years old or something whenever she was killed,
Something like that.
I don't think I'd really be wanting to talk about it anymore.
I don't either.
And I've seen that guy on TV a lot lately, where it's like, they did the Netflix one, and then like ABC just did some crappy little like 2020 special or whatever about it. It's like at some point, don't you get sick of talking about your daughter being murdered? Like, it's just weird. I mean, and granted, I know he doesn't. It's just that guy is strange to me.
It is. It's very strange.
Like, why would you? Like, I would never be wanting to just go on TV and talk about that. Like, he must get paid for it, like a pretty good amount.
But these cold cases, there's so many great conspiracy theories that come from them, and I hate to use them as an example for great conspiracies, but like
they are
like the brother.
Yeah, that one. That's a rough one.
I mean, can you imagine that kid having to live his entire life with people thinking that he killed her, and then his parents covered it by writing the note for him?
God, and then like, well, they say in the Netflix one about, it's like an interview with the mom from back in the day where she's talking about like taking her, going to the supermarket, and he's eye level because he's a little kid, eye level with like the National Enquirers and those, at the checkout, and seeing, JonBenet's brother brutally murdered her sister, and he's like eye level looking at this as a little kid. It's like that. Like, I know National Enquirer somehow is able to get away with doing stuff like that, and not just them, but like other sources. They should be like, I do believe in like freedom of press, blah blah blah, but there should be real accountability for doing stuff like that. Like, if you publish something and you're wrong, you should be held accountable. Like,
I agree. Well, I think he won a lawsuit.
Well, he did win a lawsuit eventually, but but it shouldn't be like a lawsuit thing. Like there should be jail time. Like
I see what you're saying.
a lawsuit's not enough because those companies, like, that's not coming out of that writer's pocket. Like that's coming out of People Magazine or whatever,
Right.
who has plenty of money to pay, a little civil suit. Because they always settle, and they settle for an amount that's so much less than what they're actually, being sued for. It gets nothing to them. So there's no like repercussions really. That's a real repercussion. They get a spanking, which is that's not okay.
So maybe we do need to bring back John Adams.
I mean, some of that, yes. Like there should be more just like media accountability.
100%.
Like you shouldn't be like you should be allowed to do it. It's just that when you're wrong, you should be held accountable in a much more severe way.
To be honest with you, the way they went after Alex Jones, so they are doing it to some people, but they don't do it to everybody.
Well, and that's the interesting thing too, is how easy it is to do that to Alex Jones, which they should, because Alex Jones is a fucking terrible person too. But I'm glad they did it to him. But do that to all those people that are saying stuff that are in a similar vein, like all those like big media sources, like they're just as they're not screaming into a microphone saying that the parents of children who have been murdered are actors, but at the same time they are doing stuff that's like blatantly wrong, like still publishing stuff saying that a little boy murdered his sister when he didn't do it is like they've never had to face any repercussions. Like Alex Jones is getting the repercussions he deserves.
Right.
So I'm fully happy with that.
Right.
Do that across the board.
That's my point. Be fair and be fair to all and spread across the board. But these corporations, they kind of get to have the deniability of who do you send to jail.
Well, right. Yeah. And, they're worth so much more money. Like you can sue Alex Jones into bankruptcy. It is hard to do that to, the New York Times.
Yep.
or pick, whatever stores. Like they have a little bit more money than Alex Jones.
So another thing I want to talk to you about, because I had to make some bullet points to make sure I had my things to get through.
Okay.
Give me some music conspiracy theories that are compelling to you.
I mean, there's always I don't believe most of them. Like the Courtney Love having something to do with Kurt Cobain, I don't buy that one bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's like the Jimi Hendrix, his manager murdered him to get the licensing for his music because he was going to leave the record label. I don't buy that one. Like there's so many of them. It's more just like, to me, there's not a lot of conspiracy theories. Everything's pretty out in the open with the music industry, I think. Like it's ran by a lot of scumbag people. Not everybody, obviously. There's people who genuinely just want to make great music and produce great music. But yeah, I don't know. Like, is there one you're thinking of?
So I talked about this on the last podcast, and it cracks me up. The Stevie Wonder isn't blind theory.
Oh, I believe that.
You do?
That's a good one. Yeah. Well, most people who are blind are not just 100% blind, like seeing, the dark all the time. Like they have like little specks of light, like they can kind of see changes in light. So if somebody, like he could probably go outside and tell you whether it's day or night.
Right.
Like, he can do a little bit of that, but yeah, he can't, read a book or drive or, anything like that. But yeah, I think that like he can tell, I think he can maybe see some things. There's too much stuff where you're just like, there's too many stories where you're just like, what the fuck? This doesn't make sense. Like, how did you know that was Shaquille O'Neal in that elevator? Have you heard that one of Shaq?
No, I have a different video that I've seen, but give me that one.
So Shaq was talking about how him and Stevie Wonder, I guess, used to live in the same building at one point. Shaq walked into the elevator. Stevie Wonder's already in there. Shaq walks in, doesn't say a word, just presses the button. He said, Stevie Wonder said, what's up, big fella? Like that to Shaq. And he's like,
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Which maybe because Shaq is such a large person, like the air pressure changes. if he's around. So maybe Stevie Wonder has those, like daredevil senses where he can pick up on those things. But I think I know the video you're talking about.
Or he memorized his cologne.
Well, memorize that could be it. Yeah. Yeah. I think I know the video
Well,
you're
it's
talking.
that one where someone's on stage waving at him, and then they cut to him, and he's waving back.
Oh, that's not the one I was thinking of.
No, so that's
Okay.
what I'm thinking of. But you can clearly see the woman that's standing next to him saying, "Hey, he's waving at you."
Oh, okay. See, I was thinking of the one where I think it was Paul McCartney maybe started to knock over the microphone stand, and Stevie Wonder catches it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like that one. That's a hard one to explain.
That's a hard one to fade.
Yeah. Maybe Stevie Wonder is like Daredevil, like he can see, like if it's raining, he can see the outline of people.
Yeah.
That could be a thing.
Well, I was convinced last episode that he played the drums on Superstition, which I know to be true now because there is video of him playing the drums.
Yeah.
But I'm just not convinced you can be totally blind and play drums. There has to be some little speck of vision you have.
I think you could be blind and play the drums.
I don't know.
I can play the drums with my eyes closed.
Okay, so here's what I want to say with that, because someone told me the other day after I put this little clip out about it, and they said, I've done it. I play with my eyes closed. But you have a vision for what the drum kit is. You've seen it so many times in your life. You have a feel for where the cymbals are. If you've never seen it, it would take a lot of time developing to get that to where you know the exact placement of like cymbals.
I don't think it would take that long to find that out. I think like if I closed my eyes, I would know. Yeah, I'd be able to tell pretty quick. I think where everything is.
Well,
now,
I might have to
granted, if they just sat me in front of a drum set with blindfolded, and they just said now play and don't make a mistake, yeah, it might be a little bit different. But if I was able to kind of feel things out for a little bit first, I'd have a good idea. I think it'd actually be not that hard to play the drums blindfolded.
Well, see, I get guitar, I get piano, I get all of that, but the drums thing does fascinate me.
Yeah, I get that. He played harmonica on what's the Elton John song? Oh my God, I guess that's why they call it the blues.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. He's the person playing the harmonica on that song.
Well, I think you've done a clip on this with all kinds of people that are backing up on different songs.
Yeah, those are interesting to me.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, because that's a thing that now it's always going to be like so and so featuring so and so they both get the credit and blah blah blah, and so that they can bump up their Billboard numbers and all that bull crap that people do. But back in the day, people would just like if you're in the studio next door, like I might just pop in and do something on one of your songs and not be credited, or I might be like in like the liner notes as like a thank you, but. Yeah. It wasn't such a like an ego thing back then, it seems.
Yeah, they were just, I had somebody on the podcast that was telling me that the Stones and Beatles, they didn't even know they were going to be able to make careers out of it. They were literally just doing it for the love, and they were going to see how long it could go.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all of them, like then, but that was kind of how they all started off very small and no idea that it was going to really work out for them, and it just did. I mean, the Beatles were struggling for a little while. Like they were playing in Hamburg in Germany.
Hamburg.
And for nobody basically. They got turned down by a bunch of record labels. I mean, because rock and roll basically had died before the Beatles came around. Like it had kind of came and went, and everybody kind of looked at it as like this passing, like fad that like, because everybody who made rock music in the 50s was done making music before the Beatles came around. Like by 1959, there was no one making rock music anymore. So it's like, well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense that people would be skeptical to want to sign the Beatles when they think that whole genre was like a 4-year fad.
I was telling somebody recently that Hamburg story for the Beatles is kind of like Robert Johnson, where they kind of disappeared from where they're from and then came back just new people.
Yeah. Well, you have sex with enough German, transgendered prostitutes, that'll do it to you.
The dark. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
The dark history of 4 guys that went to Hamburg and changed the world for the worst.
No, wait, no.
The hijackers for 9/11.
Really?
Yeah. So it's actually 3 of the 4. It was supposed to be all 4 guys, but one of them got denied a visa, but Muhammad
Yeah.
Atta, Marwan al-Shehi, and Zia Jarrah were three of the hijackers on 9/11, and they all met in Hamburg.
Really?
The other guy that didn't get admitted, Ramsey bin al-Shib, became the go-between between bin Laden and the hijackers.
Yeah.
So, like, have you done a lot of dive into 9/11 and that history?
I mean, a pretty good amount.
Yeah.
Doesn't
So,
sound like as much as you have, but
9/11 is the deepest dive I've ever done.
okay.
And I'm not a
Gotcha.
conspiracy theorist. I mean,
Yeah.
I've read all the theories from that day, and some.
I don't buy most of the conspiracies for it.
There might be a shred of truth to some of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, it just made me think about that for Hamburg.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely the opposite end of the Beatles. They say everything is an equal and opposite reaction.
There you go.
There's the opposite reaction. Yeah.
9/11 is just interesting to me because it really changed the world.
Yeah. It is. I mean, I think it's why everyone in my generation is so much more anxious than the previous generation.
We have a woman that might be coming on the podcast soon. I'm trying to work it out because she can only do it remote. And if our government would have listened to her and the people she worked with, it would have never happened because they would have killed bin Laden well before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they knew that he was. I mean, it's not like it was the first time he had done something. He had blown up the U.S. embassy, and I can't remember where. There was somewhere in Africa.
So those were two, Darwal al-Salam and Kenya.
Mm-hmm. Kenya was the one I was thinking of, but yeah.
They were both on the same day.
Right. Yeah. Jesus Christ.
They were like 15 minutes apart.
Oh, so I did not know that. I knew the Kenya thing. That was the one I was thinking of, but I didn't know there was a second one on the same day.
On the same day. So that was 1998. And the scary thing about that was they proved they could do multiple things in different countries.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. Yeah, which immediately makes you such a larger threat. Like if you're able to manage that and to make it so perfect and that, within the exact same time frame, like, yeah, you would think he would have been more of they would have been keeping a closer eye on it.
Right.
That's where the conspiracy in my head kind of goes, is like, now granted, I'm sure when George Bush was president, he's probably getting thousands of those memos sent to him of like, hey, we think this guy's a terrorist. We think this guy's going to do something. And it's like, well, yeah, if you put all your resources into every single one of them, like you just couldn't do that. But you would think he would stand out.
Well, Michael Scheuer, who was running Alex Station at the time, numerous times took them specific targets they could hit that day of where he is, and they always had a reason not to. One time it was a UAE prince that was there falcon hunting with them. One time it was if they hit him, they might hit a mosque was close, and they didn't want the political fallout from hitting a mosque.
Right.
Always a reason not to do it.
Yeah, and then it's crazy how we usually don't seem to care about hitting an innocent target if it means getting the bad guy.
Right.
So it's like weird how we did care then.
Or I'll give you my best conspiracy theory from this day that I actually believe, and I want to know what the truth of it was. So have you ever seen the movie Syriana?
With
George Clooney?
George Clooney? Yeah.
It's all about
a long
oil.
time ago.
So that character is based off a CIA agent named Bob Baer. Is that a name familiar to you?
No.
So one time these two guys were doing a film about conspiracy theories around 9/11 and trying to get the truth. And they caught him on the sidewalk. And he said that in San Diego, a few days before the attacks, a guy walked into his financial broker's office and said, it's going down next week. Sell everything. And that guy's brother worked in the White House.
Yeah, Jesus.
And Bob Baer is a reputable source, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a rough one. When you hear, because there's a few of those where you're just like, that I've heard, where people knew things or seemingly knew something was going to happen like the next week or like that day. Like, I mean, like George H.W. Bush having like the meeting with bin Laden's family like that day. Like for like the Carlisle group
at the hotel in DC.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's like, well, how does that? Which I know the Bin Laden's family was like massively connected and like arguably one of the wealthiest families in Saudi Arabia. So, and then we have this, connection to Saudi Arabia. So, like, it does add up that he would be meeting with them at some point. Like that's not a crazy thing. It's just weird that it happened that day, and they're discussing like basically something that is going to be directly connected to a potential, military invasion. Like there's just so many things where you're just like, well, that's weird. Now, granted, it could just be a coincidence. Like, could, but it's hard to think that it's all that. Yeah.
How about the kid from Pakistan who was, I think, a freshman or sophomore in high school? And the school year had just started. And one day, the Pakistani kid, again, just moved here, is staring at the World Trade Center. The teacher says, "What's distracting you?" And he said, "You see those towers? They're not going to be there next week." And the FBI has confirmed that it's true. And they never confirmed how he got the information.
So they confirmed that, because to be honest, like, that sounds like a story that someone in a class, that somebody would just make up and say, like, well, I remember one of my fellow classmates saying blah, blah, blah. Jesus. If that's a confirmed thing, then my God, that's
so that is
crazy.
In the Nat Geo documentary on 9/11, which I think is probably the best full-fledged documentary ever around the event, where they give the history leading up to it and after, and they mention it in that documentary. And I've read up about it, and apparently it's true because the teacher is the one that reported it.
Right. Jeez.
Like 2 weeks later.
Well, I mean, because it obviously is it was technically a conspiracy in the sense that it was a group of people coming together to make a, typically that would be for like an assassination, but still it was a plot that took a pretty large number of people. So it makes sense that you would have people like on the phrase of it who would know about it. Like some people kind of on the edge are like, my cousin knows someone who knows someone. Because obviously, like, secrets don't stay secrets very long. So, it does kind of make sense that there would be someone here who would know that it was going to happen. Like, it's not crazy to think. It wasn't just one guy who decided, hey, I'm going to go do this thing today. It's not like a Charles Whitman, UT clock tower shooting thing.
Right.
It's just a crazy guy who lost his mind one day. Like, no, this is like a detailed plot. So, that's not crazy to think that that actually does make a lot of sense that someone here would know about it, especially if they're like connected in some way to
I absolutely think people here knew, and definitely I believe that foreign intelligence officers knew and never told us.
That I could definitely see that being true. Yeah. And so in that sense, there are some like conspiracy. Then I guess I do kind of fall into like a little bit of conspiracy over it. Now, I don't necessarily think that George Bush called and said, hey, I want you to do this so that we have an excuse to, go to war. I don't think that happened. I actually don't think George Bush had anything to do with this whatsoever. I think that he just became president at the worst possible time. Like, I think it probably would have happened no matter who the president was.
Oh yes, absolutely. It was already underway under Clinton.
Right, exactly. So to say that, like, oh well, look at George Bush and his connection, blah blah blah, with his dad and the family. It's like, well, I don't know. But then, God, if you really dive into it, then it's like, well, George Bush kind of wasn't supposed to be president, and then he became president after this recount, where the recount is, the state where the recount is, goes his way is the state where his brother's the governor. And then the woman who's in charge of the recount becomes part of his, White House. And it's like all these things. And it's like, well, did they just push him into being president so that it would be easier for this to happen? That's where it does kind of go like, well, Jesus, now I can see how you could get really in the weeds with this thing.
And the people around him benefited from it happening. Now, people like Halliburton with Dick Cheney.
Yeah. Because if they were just looking for an excuse to invade Iraq, you do kind of think like, well, they wouldn't have to have people who have nothing to do with Iraq, hijack planes and fly them into the World Trade Center and the Pentagon. Like they could have found a different reason to invade Iraq. Like
They could have, but we are talking about this guy Wolf. I can't remember which, Richard Wolf maybe, and another
uh
guy had written this paper leading up to the 2000 election about we need another Pearl Harbor to be able to implement our foreign policy of wanting to expand and bring democracy to the Middle East.
well,
I
that's
wish I could
definitely
remember the name of the paper.
yeah, I mean that makes sense too because I've kind of heard that theory too of like of it being the new Pearl Harbor, like of people saying like I guess multiple people like high ranking people saying like we need a new Pearl Harbor, like at some point around that time making that statement. It's like well that's a weird thing to say that because it does sort of make sense because you haven't really had any sort of like I mean too much of a like international conflict going on. I mean, Cold War is long over, so Russia's not really like as much of a thing. Desert Storm kind of came and went. Like it does kind of make sense. It's like, well, we need a new one. Like we need a new enemy out there. Like, yeah,
And
that's
here's the thing, the Cole bombing that happened in 2000, those are his bin Laden's three main attacks on us is the embassy towers that you referenced. But then
yeah,
in 2000, they bombed the Cole off the coast of Yemen and we didn't respond. So
Jesus.
it's almost like facilitating the idea that it has to be something big for the U.S. government to
Right.
get involved.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's so easy to fall into the whole conspiracy things. Like I try to think that I think that I'm not one of those people, like a person who like I can see through the bullshit. I really can't. Like I can get trapped into them real quick, and I catch myself doing it because some of them I do think that it's that shred of truth to it where it's like,
It's
well,
that shred of truth.
Jesus, the Kennedy one's the only one that I am 100% convinced. 100% convinced it was a conspiracy.
Oh, it was
There's
100%.
Yeah. There's no doubt in my mind that the lone shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, hates Kennedy, blah, 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 that's all a bunch of bullshit. There's
Back and
no
to the
doubt.
left. Back and to the
Yeah.
left.
Yeah. Old Garrison. No, that's the only one where I'm like, I completely just, yeah. Yeah, everything else, there's like a doubt in me about it. Like, or I just flat out don't believe the conspiracies. Like the moon landing, I don't. Yeah, fuck all that. I don't believe any of that. Yeah, I don't believe any of the conspiracies about that stuff. Like, but yeah, Kennedy and then like World Trade Center's a little bit. Those are two that'll get me.
Well, the moon landing has always been interesting to me because didn't Kubrick let them shoot at least footage of them doing it in case we actually didn't make it there?
Well, yeah, and then I think some of that footage was actually used. Like I mean, so that's where part of it is kind of like, oh, okay, I get the whole thing of like, oh, this was all just filmed in a movie studio. It never happened. It happened. I mean, we definitely went. And Neil Armstrong, I do 100% believe Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon, which poor Michael Collins. I mean, my God.
I mean, right.
Like you make it all the way there and you don't get to at least put one foot on the damn thing. Like you would think Buzz could have like taken over for a few minutes and let him go out there. Like God, to get that close, yeah, that's a rough one. But I 100% believe it happened. And
Okay.
yeah, and I'm sure that they did film some stuff because they need to be able to show something good on TV. Like, the footage from the moon looks horrible. Like, you gotta have something better.
I get it. Let me tell you, since you referenced Collins, I love that you recognize him. No one ever talks about him in this conversation. My Collins and one of my favorite historical events is the night we killed bin Laden.
Mm-hmm.
The Navy SEALs, go over to Abbottabad and they all start raiding this house. And all we do is talk about the guys who possibly shot him. Some of them are in the press. How about the fucking guys that trained their entire lives to be SEALs and when they got into that house had to babysit the fucking kids?
Man, it's a bridesmaid. Like you are the bridesmaid. Like that's God, what a horrible. I mean, like that's what you get to do. Like I think that's the worst. That's got to be the worst thing ever, is to be the person who almost does something.
Almost does something.
Yes.
Like I want to
Like,
interview. I'd love to have talked to Collins and back in the day, or I would love to talk to those SEALs because it's like
yeah.
you went all the way after all that training, and you were just kind of like pushed to the side.
Yeah. God, I know. Like, can you, like, I firmly feel like losing, like, if I was in the NFL, I think losing the Super Bowl would be so much worse than never going.
I'd rather go 0-16.
Yes, without a doubt. I have argued with so many people about this who are like, well, no, because at least you went. Like, no, 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 no. I would much rather be last than second any day. And so that's Michael Collins. Like Michael Collins is the Buffalo Bills.
He is the Buffalo Bills,
Yeah.
who I saw
Like,
in the Super Bowl when I was 12 years old. I watched one of their losses because I'm a Cowboys fan.
oh Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, I would have, much rather have been like the Bengals, back in the day.
Yeah,
Just one of the worst teams imaginable.
yeah.
The Lions. I'd much rather have been the Lions than be the Bills. Like
Now, it's pretty cool. Now, okay, so we're talking about competition, though. It is pretty cool that you got to go to the moon. But again, I see exactly what you're saying. Like,
yeah.
you didn't get to get on the moon.
Yes. 2 out of the 3 people did, and you're the third.
Like,
That's the problem.
If me and 3 buddies go to the pool and I don't get to get in the pool, but they do, fuck that. I'm not watching everybody else have fun.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. I'm 100% with you. I think that had to have been. Oh, is he still alive? I wonder. Michael Collins.
I don't
I
know.
mean, Buzz. I think Buzz and Neil Armstrong are both dead, right? Because didn't Buzz Aldrin die like not that long ago?
I don't know. I'm going to see if he's still up if you don't mind me looking real quick.
Yeah, no.
What's his first name? Jim?
Who?
What's the Collins' first name?
I thought it was Michael. Michael Collins, astronaut. He died in 2021. Dang.
One of the guys that's stuck up there at the space station right now is from Nashville, where I live.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah.
I mean, how shitty is that when you get up there and you're like, hey, you're going for, what was it, 4 days?
Is that what it was? Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was some short kind of little jaunt, I think. But yeah,
And they're still there.
that has to be like I mean, I'm firmly on the feeling of like fuck space, and fuck the ocean. I don't want anything to do with either one of them. I don't want to go to them. I don't want to be near them. I'm fine being on land. I always feel like if we were supposed to be in the ocean, we'd have gills. If we were supposed to be in the air, we'd have wings. We ain't got either one of them. So I will sit my big ass right here on solid ground. I definitely feel sorry for the people that are stuck up there, but why are you there? You don't need to be there.
Well,
There's no reason, like how I do not feel one shred of sympathy for those people that got, crushed to death in that damn submarine or, submersible.
Oh, no.
Why are you doing this?
Insane.
There's nothing for you. There's nothing for, like, Jim Cameron went down to the Titanic, like a dozen times? Why? Why did you, once, okay, I get it. You're weirdly obsessed with the Titanic. What are the other 11 times for? What do you need to see? Like, I don't get it. I don't get that at all.
Listen, if you go do an activity that is 1, interesting, but 2, just to show people you have enough money to waste on something, you lose all my sympathy because you can't afford to go down there unless you're wealthy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Or up there. I mean, like if you're doing it privately, old Elon wanting to send everybody to Mars, he can kiss my ass. I'm not going to Mars. You know what devastation it would take on Earth for me to think like going up to that shithole would be a good idea?
Bro, I watched The Martian. I never felt for one moment like I wish I was there.
I mean, I don't get it. I don't know what in his mind, like what he thinks the Earth is going to turn into, where it's going to be worse than that. Like Mars just seems miserable.
It looks miserable.
Yeah, like at least we have, some cool shit here. And even if things get really bad, some of the stuff will still be around. Like it would have to get real hot here for me to think like, God, send me in a shuttle to a big speck of red dirt. Yeah, no thank you.
I think, to be honest with you, Cody, I think it's honestly a statement on where we are nowadays and why people need to appreciate the society that's been built for us before us and just kind of sit back and enjoy. We're so comfortable and things are so normal at the end of the day, in my opinion, that now we got people thinking, oh, well, let's just find something fun to do. We're bored. Let's go to freaking Mars. Can you
That's what it
imagine?
is.
Can you imagine uncontacted tribes? They're just trying to find the next meal, a very primal existence. And now we got some people thinking, let's go on a spaceship to Mars.
Oh yeah, none of those people like running around with like slingshots and shit were looking up at a light in the sky going, how did I get to that?
That's exactly right.
No, they were just trying to like sacrifice each other so that light up there didn't go away.
That's exactly right.
That's the only thing they're worried about, is making sure that light stayed there. They were not in any way thinking like, God, I'd like to go up there and see what that's all about.
Oh, it cracks me up.
Yeah.
Those people thought meteor showers were their dead relatives flying by.
Yeah. And I would much rather think that. I wish we still thought that. I wish, in Lion King, whenever he's like, all those things up there, those are all your ancestors' bullshit or whatever. I wish I believed that.
Me too.
I wish I believed that. I wish I didn't know that this thing went on forever and that it was some space that somehow is expanding always, but what's it expanding into? Like if I keep blowing up a balloon and it keeps getting bigger, like eventually, like it's only going to get as big as the room is. Like, so what is this thing expanding into? All that stuff makes me want to, put a fucking, a drill bit through my brain. But I just hate space. I hate it. I hate Neil deGrasse Tyson. I hate Elon Musk for those reasons. I hate space, and I don't like people that spend their time focused on space. Don't worry about that stuff. Leave it alone.
Can I tell you what happened recently that told me quit worrying about space?
Okay. Yeah.
Because the people, so, and this relates to you and what you do. People trust you to give them the facts in 90 seconds when you do these amazing little reels, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The people who are responsible for telling us about the creation of the Earth and space have recently come out and said, that 13 billion might be 26. And we're not talking double from 13 to 26. We're talking 13 billion to 26 billion. It's like, so y'all don't even know what my entire life you've been wrong.
Right. And you're off by, quite a bit.
13 billion.
I think that, because I've always and I'm not a mathematician by any means or a scientist by any means, but I've always kind of wondered because, how they know the distance between certain objects in space, planets, stars, whatever, is based on its relative distance from another thing. So they're saying like this star we know is here, so we can judge that the distance to that star is this. But what if they were wrong about the distance from that first star? And then the star before it, like all you had to do was be wrong once. And everything else is wrong. So how do we even know? Now, this is not some like flat Earth thing. I think that's ridiculous and a bunch of bullshit.
Oh, come on.
Oh, there's definitely yeah.
Come on, Cody. No flat earthers.
I know. I need an open mind, but yeah, no, like this. Yeah, this is not one of those things where that space is just some wall that's put up, or I don't believe we're in a matrix or something like that. But I don't know what it is, to be honest. I don't know what space is. I don't know what all is going up there. I don't want to know. I don't care. I don't care that there's a star out there that's 1 trillion times the size of our sun. I don't like thinking about that. I don't want to know. I'm already on the verge of an existential crisis. Probably 23 hours a day. The other hour I'm asleep. So, yeah, I don't like space.
It's beyond our comprehension. The world's complicated enough down here.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know 99% of the things here. I don't need to worry about that shit.
Amen.
I know the names of, I think, all 8 of our planets. That's all I really need to know. I don't need to know any of the other thing, Kuiper belts and all that bullshit.
Well, there's another one for you, Cody. We grew up with Pluto, and now it's not there.
Yeah,
I'm
and
sorry,
that's
it's
fine.
there, but
Well, it's not a planet, and that's fine. Fuck Pluto. I don't give a shit. I mean, fuck all of them, really. I don't live on any of those other places, so I don't care what happens to them.
But how many tests did we take growing up where we were supposed to have Pluto, and now it turns out if we missed Pluto, we would have gotten the answer wrong, but it turns out we were right on that test.
Exactly. Which just shows that scientists don't know what the fuck they're doing.
That's right.
Yeah. That's, and again, I'm not like some like science denier, like, whatever. Like, I'm not trying to bring polio back or something. Although, no, I'm kidding. But I do know that scientists I think a lot of them just don't really know what they're doing. I think most people are actually bad at their jobs. That's what it most comes down to. I think like if there's any lesson to be taken from anything I've ever said, is most people just don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't know what they're doing. I don't know what I'm talking about. 99% of the time, I'm just opening my mouth and words are happening to come out. I don't know what's coming out before it comes out. And that's not a good thing. But it is the way life is. And most people are very incompetent. It's not always people are out to get you. Sometimes people just don't know what the fuck they're doing. Scientists, doctors, teachers, your parents. People just don't know what they're doing, which is fine. It's a good way to live.
It's a little scary, huh?
Yeah, but whenever you realize it, it kind of is nice, because then you go, oh, well, I don't feel so bad about being a dipshit, because the person in charge of this entire industry is also a dipshit. So, yeah. And I'm just some guy sitting in front of a fucking camera. So,
and wait, who's in charge of the entire industry?
Well, I mean, anybody, the CEOs of most companies, like every time you watch a commercial for, some product and you're like, that is the commercial you went with to advertise this product. Or, like Burger King has this commercial out now for like some new burgers. And one of them is a street corn burger. And you think, okay, Burger King has a CEO, I'm guessing, male or female, not sure. That decision to release that fucking abomination of a burger had to go all the way to the top. That CEO had to look at that and say, yes, sell it. That leads me to believe that they don't know what the fuck they're doing.
100%. Have you seen where Burger King did tweet, though, we're not snitches, after the kid got busted at McDonald's?
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, the people in charge of the social media for these companies are great. Wendy's, they do a good job. They always do some good stuff like that. It's just this, like the people up at the top. They don't know any more than the people. They're just better at kissing people's asses and getting themselves to the top. They're not smarter than the people under them.
I have to tell you, my friend Michael once told me, any idiot can join a corporation and 30 years later at least be VP.
That's exact. If you stay around long enough, you will get to the top. If you like, your talent has to just be, how do I finagle my way to the top?
That's exactly right.
You don't got to be good at your job. You just have to be able to convince some also dumb person that you're the right person for the job, and to be able to show them a piece of paper that says, look how long I've been here. And you'll get there. Yeah. Like every time I see like a product being released, I'm like, okay, now I know that I could run that company. Like I could be the CEO of Burger King, and that doesn't make me feel good.
It's funny that you say this, because this has always been my thing about, I wish the masses knew their power more. If the CEO of Burger King goes on vacation for 2 weeks, Burger King still operates. If the employees in the restaurants of Burger King decide to go on vacation for 1 day, the entire company shuts down.
Well, true, but that's a lot more than just one person. If one person from a Burger King somewhere went on vacation for a day, nothing would happen.
Nothing would happen. But my point is the power of the masses that obviously never are able to like kind of figure out how to regain some of the power from the top. It's the people that make it run. It's the truckers.
I agree, but also they're more easily replaceable. As sad as it is to say, it's way easier to replace. It's a lot easier to teach someone how to flip a burger than it is to be the As dumb as most CEOs are, it's easier to teach someone to flip a burger than it is to teach them to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe people are paid what they deserve to be paid, and they are given the responsibility that they deserve to be given. Now, granted, I think every step of the line is incompetent. Like, I mean, obviously, if you go to a fast food restaurant, most of the times your order's wrong because people working there don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're not any different than the CEO, who also doesn't know what he's doing. But the people working at that restaurant deserve to get paid minimum wage, and the CEO deserves to get billions of dollars. It's just how it is. Because also, if you are the person working at the register and you make a very big mistake, the worst that could happen is you just have ruined one customer's day and everything's fine. If the CEO makes a gigantic mistake, let's say 20,000 people just lost their jobs. So, Bud Light. Yeah, exactly. So, Circuit City, Blockbuster. I mean, Blockbuster deciding, the CEO deciding, hey, we don't want to get involved in streaming. That was his decision. That was not the decision of the, person working at a Blockbuster in Hoboken. Like, that was the CEO's decision. And he cost the jobs of thousands of people. So he, deserves to have a lot of money based on the fact that he has that much responsibility. It's just how it should be.
What was the figure that when Netflix met with them, that they were going to buy them for like what? They were going to sell for like 10 million?
It was something like that. Yeah, it was something like that.
I mean, what a blunder.
There's another one with Sony where, because Sony was like the first, or started producing, like the Spider-Man movies, like in the early 2000s, before Marvel movies became like a big thing. And Sony went to Marvel or Sony was going to go to Marvel and basically offer to buy Marvel, like buy the rights to every comic book character. And the person at the head of Sony said, we are not giving them, it was like $4 million. They're like, we are not giving them $4 million. No one gives a shit about all these other characters. Yeah.
How about the dude from Apple? Steve had one other partner.
Oh yeah.
And he bought out. He sold back out after like 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk about, that's what we were talking about earlier with Collins and the Seals, like getting almost there and not making it.
That's exactly what that is,
bro.
Yeah.
Oh, well, listen, man, I've kept you a long time, and I really appreciate your time. I want to ask you one more thing, or 2 more questions.
Okay.
Have you ever done a 23andMe or any of those tests to find out where you stand with historical figures relation-wise?
I've never done the actual 23andMe or anything like that. Another conspiracy I kind of am. I feel like they're doing some weird things, collecting everybody's spit. You don't need to be collecting everybody's DNA like that. So I've never done 23andMe, but I've spent an ungodly amount of time a couple of years ago. Actually, like when COVID started and we started getting things I had nothing to do, I just started doing Ancestry.com, like doing my tree, like researching like genealogical website, everything, and found a bunch of stuff in it. Some good, some bad, some real bad.
Let's hear it.
Oh Jesus. Well, so some good actually. So like I traced it back to like Henry Hudson, which is pretty interesting. Like, the guy that basically discovered New York. Well, European who discovered New York. So I was able to trace it back like that far, which is pretty crazy. And a bunch of stuff like that, like where you find like different people that are like one of the people I found was Clement Clark Moore. It's the guy that wrote "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." So I was like, oh, that's pretty interesting too. Like there's some cool ones like that. Edgar Allan Poe was on there, not as a direct relative. He didn't have any kids, but like his brother was like in my mom's family tree, like descendant. Which I was like, yeah. So a lot of cool stuff like that. But then also found a guy, I can't remember what his name was, but he was, well, I guess like any white person in the South, if you start researching your family, you're going to come across one of these types of guys. There's a fellow who owned a pretty large number of slaves. There's a dude who was listed as being 7'1" and 500 pounds, which is wild for like the 1800s. And apparently, when so at one point he met with like a Native American tribe and tried to like negotiate, or was basically setting up this like meeting with a Native American tribe where he wanted to negotiate, like basically like a "you leave me alone, I leave you alone" kind of thing. And he poisoned all of their drinks and killed all of them. And there's a memorial it's somewhere in Virginia, I believe. There's a memorial dedicated to like the massacre of this group, with his name on it. God, I gotta look it up and find his name. But then also, whenever slavery was abolished, instead of freeing his slaves, he killed all of them.
Oh.
Yeah. So I read that one and I was like, well, this is not good. I should probably stop digging into my family.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like the have you ever heard the Ben Affleck story that he was on that show, Who Do You Think You Are? Whatever it is, or Finding Your Roots. I think the American one is like
the
Finding Your
PBS
Roots.
documentary.
The PBS one, yeah. I think the British one is Who Do You Think You Are? But yeah, he was going to be on that show, and they tell the people any unsavory things ahead of time, and apparently Ben Affleck had his episode pulled because they found out he had some slave owners in his past, which I was like, oh, you're a bitch, because like, just, I mean, you're not one, like, they don't pull it, like, just, say that that's what it is, like, so I always kind of feel like, well, I mean,
my favorite was when they saw Sonny Houston. Sonny Houston was on the PBS one, and they told her that, the girl from The View.
Yeah.
And they told her she was descended from slave owners.
Really?
Yeah. Which really messes up her platform and some of the things she says.
Yeah. 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 What an insufferable group of people.
Oh,
I don't think
God.
there's a more insufferable group of people to ever join into one room.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe besides like the members of Coldplay, like it's them and the people and the ladies from The View that are just, boy, just a horribly, I don't know, I'll watch it sometimes just like out of hatred, just like Joy Bay, like really just to see how long it takes before I want to just like put a hit out on Joy Behar, which I never would do, for the record, but before the thought creeps in.
Bro,
it's usually about 3 or 4 seconds.
Yeah, it only maybe 5 at the most.
Yeah.
But it only takes like, they must have some checks coming in, because they know that people are just. I don't understand what the ratings could be, because I've never met a person that says I watch The View like for fun.
I used to watch it. I'd watch it every once in a while back in the Star Jones days. I liked Star Jones when I was a kid. I always thought she seemed like a nice lady. But then again, I was also a big old dipshit, so I didn't know what they were talking about. I just always like, oh, Star Jones seems like I wish she was my like aunt or something, And now I wouldn't want any of them. Actually, a lot of them do remind me of family members, which may be why I hate them so much. But,
well, like I said, I'm gonna get you out of here. One more question.
Yeah.
You're killing it as a content creator, as a podcaster.
Thank you.
What is your advice to people or content creators on how to find your lane, and make compelling content?
Oh, that's a good question. I've never been asked that before, actually. So, I mean, definitely, because I would say definitely don't try to make anything that, like, don't do it because you think it's going to get a bunch of attention or like you're going to get a bunch of views. Do it because it's like something that you think is interesting, and try different stuff, because like I've had the podcast going for like a pretty long time, like 4 or 5 years, I think, maybe like 4 years. No one was ever watching it, which not a lot of people watch it now too, but like it was getting nothing. And then I would like clip it and make little clips and put on Instagram, and no one watched those. And I was like, oh, all right. Like, I didn't really care. I just was like, well, that's just how it is. It's hard to get people to watch things. Like, how do you stand out? And then it just kind of happened randomly that I was like, well, I do love these like I do know like a lot of like little random stories from movies and history and stuff. So I could end every episode talking about like taking one of those and talking about it, and then clip it and make like a little clip of that as like its own little segment. And then that started to work. So, and then get more attention. So like, it was kind of just like stay kind of like, I don't know, like just find things that you're genuinely interested in and just talk about that. Like, don't talk about sports if you don't like sports, but you think sports is gonna, because sports content, like analyzing, sports and stuff like that, becoming one of those like sort of talking heads gets a lot of attention because it's sports opinions are very divisive, political opinions same way. But if you aren't actually interested in sports or politics, don't talk about it. Like don't make that your content. Make your content something that like you actually are very interested in. Because people are not that dumb. Like they know whether someone's doing this like for views or whether someone actually enjoys doing the thing that they're doing. I love doing this. Did not at all think that it was going to turn into anything. No, not one bit. But I do it the exact same way, whether no one watched it or whether like millions of people watch it. Like I don't give a fuck really. I just do it like the way I like doing it. And so, yeah, dance like no one's watching.
Amen. Dance like no one's watching. I love it. Well, I want to tell you thank you because just all the time consuming your content brings me joy to learn all the things I don't know about the world. But at least, like I said, I might not be informed, but I get to walk around feeling informed.
It's a good feeling. That's the best feeling. Fake it till you make it. You don't really need to be informed. I'm not smart. Like I am in no way a smart person. I like learning shit, and sometimes my memory works kind of well.
Well, brother, you don't have to be a genius to make an impact on this world.
No, you don't. It's the beauty of the world. You could be a real dipshit and do something all right.
That's right. All right. Well, that's going to be the end of the podcast. We appreciate y'all watching. Hang out for 1 second if you can, Cody.
Yep. Yeah.
And do you want to plug one more time before you sign off?
Yeah. So, Instagram at the Cody Tucker. YouTube is the Cody Tucker Show. The podcast, you can find it anywhere you get podcasts: Spotify, Apple, YouTube, all that stuff. And then those little reels we're talking about, that's Instagram and YouTube. I post them on there as well. So follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Absolutely, y'all. And so under the subscription, in case you're lazy like me and don't want to Google something, I'll have all the links in the description.
Hell yeah.
Thanks so much for watching, y'all. Bye.